So, you're fans of torture? Well, torture podcast, of course.
Allow us to introduce ourselves.
I'm Beth.
And I'm Bailey.
And we are True Crime BnB. We do a podcast every week. We release on Fridays.
And every week we'll bring to you 2 different true crime stories.
First we'll bring you a disturbing story.
And then one that will hopefully uplift your spirits a little bit.
We'd love to have you listen to our podcast.
Yeah, so join us every week on Friday. Find us anywhere you find your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple,
Google Podcasts, Amazon.
I don't know anywhere else.
And also you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at True Crime BnB.
Did we even mention that we're mom and daughter?
No. I hope you join our crime family. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, see, Dan, see? Little red light.
Is it recording?
Little red lights.
Recording?
See the little red lights on? See? That means
Yeah.
I'm recording. That
Yeah.
means you can see the minutes ticking by and everything. So now...
That doesn't mean jack shit to me. I do not trust it one bit.
It wasn't on last time. So the little red light means we're recording. So we're good to go. Once again... The subject of today's episode is a whole host of tortures, including psychological, financial, social, and if the person is just unlucky enough, physical, before the whole thing is done with. And it was used more often than you might think. The main reason, because it was absolutely free for the state to carry out. In fact, they often made money once carrying it out. But what makes it really stand out is that unlike other types of torture, this could be completely reversed. Not to be confused with Jesse James or Billy the Kid, the word has changed meaning slightly since the Middle Ages. Today we cover the process of outlawry, otherwise known as outlawing. Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. This time it's personal. I'm Kevin Young.
Technically part 3.
Technically part 3. I'm Kevin Young.
I'm Dan Horrigan for the third time.
This is fucking torture.
I think going through the process of having to re-record.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, we never got around to actually recording the second time because of my fucking Wi-Fi issue. But
I'm sorry, technically we never got around to recording the first time. The first time either.
Okay, so let's just let people know. So we know for a fact, ladies and gentlemen, that this is a great subject, be a great fucking episode with good conversation, good dialogue. And we know this because we fucking done it once already.
Yep.
Problem is, there's a little button on this thing that I have, the red circle on it, that you have to press in order to fucking record it. And I decided to just not do that.
What we'll have to do is release a special Patreon episode where it's just my audio, because that's the only thing that recorded.
Yes!
And it's just me saying, yep.
Mick Jagger.
That's interesting.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Put up, because when you send me your recording, so I can splice in and everything, I can barely hear myself. I don't know why, but I can kind of hear myself. So let's put it up there and just let people kind of listen to me, and then all of a sudden you're super loud, and then it kind of. I might pull it up and transcribe it and throw it up or something. But no, it was a great fucking episode. Great conversation. We started off the episode talking about how
the Queen,
how you and your family all felt about the death of the Queen, because as we're recording this, happened about a week ago, 10 days, something like that. We're not going to do that now because it wouldn't be organic.
Her funeral has been on since.
Yes, it was 2 nights ago. Yeah, I think
so.
Yeah.
Short version of the conversation was, we don't care.
It was. How do you feel about the Queen? Some people care. We don't. Same here. Some people care. We don't. okay, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have a show. That's pretty much the basis of the conversation. So we're not going to cover that.
That's true.
Anymore. We're not going to talk about that anymore. No, I went in after the whole shit, and I was talking to my wife, and I told her about how great the episode was, how much fun it was. And that was a show that could bring people in. And she's like, I heard you out there hooting and hollering. You were screaming. Sounded like you were having a real good time. I was like, yeah. But I forgot to hit record. And she's like, no, babe. And I said, I'm sitting out there screaming, fuck. And she goes, oh my God, that's what I heard. I was like, yeah, that's probably what you heard. Me hating myself.
That's the thing, yeah. I went downstairs and my wife was like, hey, so did you have fun? How was it? Blah, blah, blah. I said, great. Gotta do it again.
Kevin's a fucking idiot. I know I hit record. I showed you. I keep looking down to make sure it's still recording because I'm terrified.
We have to get one of those big on-air signs to put it behind you.
Once you hit,
since you press it.
So hit record, it goes, boop. Yeah, need to do something. So we're not going to talk about like the Queen and all that shit today. Here's a question for you, Dan. People who haven't seen you, I see that you have a giant Slipknot tattoo on your arm, the big S.
Yep. I'm actually wearing my t-shirt today.
Nice. So I have to ask you, since you obviously are into at least certain types of metal, how do you feel about the band Ghost?
I want to say I haven't sat down and really listened to them. Okay. I've listened to some of their stuff. Some of it I've liked. Some of it I wasn't as big of a fan. Like I know the release that song Rats was only about 4 years ago or so. I think that's a great song. But I haven't delved into them enough. Like them and Rammstein as well. It's kind of
I'm a huge Rammstein fan. Yeah. Okay.
That's the thing. I have them on Spotify. I haven't given them a proper listen to yet.
Yeah. Okay. Because they're one of those polarizing groups that I keep seeing people talk about how much they love them, and it's like I don't know why, because I'm not a fan.
I think it's because it's a whole thing with them. You know what I mean? It's not just a band. You know, they're like this whole experience.
I know, it's a whole thing behind them, and they look like a band that I should absolutely love. They look like a band. But
they don't sound anything like
they don't sound a thing like what they look like.
No. Well, I was shocked when I first heard them. I was like, "What the hell?" You know, I was like, "Sorry, I just had a kitty cat walking." But yeah, they don't sound anything like I expected them to.
Yeah.
Either. So, the band that you're wearing a t-shirt on now, that's one band I could never get into.
Coheed.
Yeah.
One of my favorite bands. Fucking love them.
Shut up, God.
Fucking love them. We've seen.
I don't know what it is. It's the singer kind of. I don't know what it is.
Too high pitched of a voice.
But then I listen to Dinosaur Jr. and if you listen to them, Jay Mascis is one of the most horrific singers I've ever heard. But I love him. So,
see, Claudio Sanchez from Cody Cameron can sing his fucking ass off, but you gotta like that high pitched emo type voice. The music is no longer that much either. When they first came out, they were extremely emo, and they're not really emo anymore. They've gone more to the harder rock side of emo, whatever. But yeah, his voice, you have to like that type of voice. And my wife is, the only man in the world she'd probably leave me for would be Claudio Sanchez.
Fair enough.
But I love them. I'm not a fan of every single thing they put out, but I'm not a fan of every single thing anybody's put out. There's always something that I don't like about a band. So, but no, I'm a huge Coheed fan. I love Coheed, but they don't make themselves out. They don't come out looking like they're going to be a fucking death metal band and then sound like they're fucking lighter hair metal. It's like, is this Cinderella? Am I listening to Cinderella? Is this Cinderella?
Yeah, they're very strange. Like in a sense, it's like this really weird kind of nearly industrial, nearly operatic, nearly. Yeah, I don't know what way.
It's like they can't. It's like there's not like a genre to really put them in because they're kind of all over the place. I don't know. That's been kind of because I've heard a lot of people that I quote unquote respect talk about how much they love them, and it kind of hurt me a little bit. Like why? Even one of the guys who does the morning radio here, He's like, man, I was really excited to see Ghost because I'd heard that Rat song and I liked it, and then I went and saw him live, and they were really good live. And then I downloaded their music, and I was so disappointed.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not as much of a metal head as most think, because of the fact that like Slipknot are like one of my top 3 favorite bands.
Yeah.
But there's not really as long of a list of metal stuff as there is. I'm more of a 90s grunge head, like Nirvana, Alice in Chains,
yeah,
stuff like that. So I'm more the gruff, voice thing.
Yeah, I'm more in the metal.
More my jam.
Yeah, I'm definitely more in the metal end. Which brings me to the next. The same radio show was doing a game the other day to win tickets. Was are these death metal bands are D&D terms? I was like, yes, finally one I can win, and I only got one wrong. I don't remember what, but I only got one wrong. But most people got them all wrong, because it's amazing how many D&D terms sound like death metal bands.
Yeah.
All right, I just needed to know how you felt about that. I didn't want to lose respect for you, but it is.
Okay, I like Rats.
Yeah, that was a decent
like
song.
most.
I'll give you that. That was a decent song. It was the only song of them I really know. I've heard a few of them that I didn't like, but that was the only that's a decent song. All right, Dan. Now, when I say the word outlaw, which has absolutely nothing to do with anything that we've been talking about so far, what is the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, now that we've talked about this already, Mick Jagger is the first one that comes to mind. But yeah, obviously the Wild West, frontier, kind of wanted posters, Dead or Alive,
not Bon Jovi,
bounty thing, blah blah blah. Yeah.
Most would say the Wild West. People living outside the rule of law, living by their own set of rules, usually robbers, thieves, gangsters of some sort. Person who constantly breaks the law is at large. And you'd be right as far as today's meaning, but that's not exactly what it always meant. Now it's more, he's an outlaw, steer clear, he'll get you. Back in the Middle Ages, it was more, he's an outlaw, get him. So the idea of...
Out with the pitchforks.
Exactly. Pitchfork, yeah, he's a fucking Frankenstein's monster. So the idea of outlawing someone was thought to be started by the Normans, a group of Northmen that settled in northern France, found the city of Normandy. Think Rollo from the Vikings when he stays in France and becomes royalty. Spoilers if you haven't seen that, that part of the Vikings that's been out for like, 8 years. That's what happens. There's also writings, supposedly 8th century English texts that allude to outlawing or stated outright. Fell out of favor in England for a little while, but came booming back in the 1200s, which we will get to in just a little bit. Before we can get too much into it, can't talk about outlawry without having a conversation about the process of exiling, which is what outlawry really is. It's an extreme version of exile. With the standard exile, you are shipped off somewhere, told to leave and not return, either forever or for a certain amount of time. If you return before you're supposed to, you got locked up or killed. Process of exiling seems to have started back in the Roman ages, possibly 3rd century BCE, with a penalty called Aquae et ignis interdicto, or to forbid water and fire. So you're just literally you're not allowed to give somebody water to drink or fire to either warm themselves or heat their food. And you
like a very poetic way of saying you're fucked. Basically,
pretty much.
It's like got all Latin. They always manage to sound like there's no direct way of saying anything in that language by looks of things.
Is there
it's all roundabouts?
Is there a "you're fucked" in Latin? Any Latin scholars out there that happen to be listening to a podcast on torture, let us know if there's a Latin for "you're fucked."
FVCK.
I imagine it's written in weird like shapes instead of letters, or I guess that'd be Greek. So exile happens for many reasons: criminal, political, religious. Some are forced, some are voluntary. Cicero, Eric the Red, and most famously Napoleon were all exiled. And of course, Dan, I can't forget Ivan the Terrible once exiling a bell to Siberia. You sitting over there.
That's my favorite part. Yeah.
Yes, a bell. So the inhabitants of the town of Uglik,
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They rang.
Get that phlegm.
You need to drink a bunch of milk before you speak it.
Yeah.
For those Eastern European countries, you have to have a ball of phlegm in your mouth. So they rang their bell to rally a demonstration against Ivan the Terrible, and he exiled the bell to Siberia after he executed about 200 nobles. So, you know.
It's the most badass bell ever. As we were saying before, like I can... Yeah. Just keep getting these images of the bell being held up on this pedestal ever since.
The bell was stayed in Siberia for about 200 years. But really, who got off worse? The nobles who died or the bell who had to go to Siberia for 200 years?
The bell, it's cold in Siberia.
Yeah.
You know what? Like it's made of brass, I'd say, most likely. And that looks cold for you. Well, I don't know. It might have been a cheap belt, might have been an expensive belt, might have been steel. I don't know. Either way, it's so damn cold.
The town of I wouldn't imagine would have a ton of money for a pretty brass bell. So probably, I don't know, plastic maybe. Who knows?
Plastic bell. That's he basically banished the bell for being a really shit bell.
Yeah, he didn't banish
it.
He didn't banish it because he was upset that they were ringing it. He banished it because it's just shit. And he was hoping that the cold in Siberia would just take care of it. But it was made it really...
Did he know plastic takes over 100 years to disappear in the earth or whatever the hell it is?
Well, it was like way back in the day where they had that plastic, which was like 2 inches thick for everything that they used, and you could fucking kill somebody with it. That's probably what they made it out of. Black plastic that is always thicker. Anyway, outlawing came almost exclusively by the order of court or king. Henry III loved it. We'll get more to him in a few minutes. Okay, Dan, let's go all the way back 13th century England, one of your favorite places, I know. And let's say someone accuses you of murder. You would never do that, but a plaintiff would make a public accusation called an appeal in the county court. Now you would be summoned to court. A common rule of the time was that if you were accused of something and then didn't stand in court and declare your innocence, you were probably guilty. That hasn't really changed a whole lot in the, few hundred years. If, they say, oh, you got to come to court because you might have done this and you flee, it's a good chance that you're probably fucking guilty.
But they're much nicer about the process now than they were back then.
Yeah, because you still...
like a few episodes ago, I found out that I'd be dragged across the bottom of a ship just for taking an orange. So
exactly.
God only knows what happened if I murdered somebody and then didn't show up for the day in court.
I just don't want scurvy. Yeah. But now, even if you run, they catch you, they bring you back. You still have trial. They still have to prove you're guilty. It doesn't look very good on you. But back then, if somebody said that you did something and you like, deuces, I'm out. More than likely, it's like, okay, well, he's guilty. Just do whatever we need to do.
Much easier to run back then, though.
Yeah,
really is the thing, which is partly why they were so. Well, I was going to say it's probably why they were so strict in their punishments for things, but at the same time, I think they were just strict in the punishment for things because
religion and
the
times
and
all that shit. Yeah,
and everybody seems to be an asshole, but yeah, it's one of those things. It's much easier to get up and vanish than obviously more than it would be now with digital age and everything.
Yeah, well, and like we had said in the Robert Hansen episodes, you couldn't get away with a lot of shit now that you could get away with even then, even in the 70s, 80s, because
70s, 80s, yeah, it's crazy, like the difference.
So
like,
go even further back. get away with a lot more shit. I mean,
Yeah.
Jack the Ripper probably would have been caught in, a week. But
Yeah, and as we were saying actually last time as well, the whole thing is imagine being a twin and being in this situation.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that part.
That'd be even worse. Oh, sorry.
No,
Excuse if you hear the noise of this cat now because he's after jumping up in my lap.
One of the Sassholes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the sassiest of the lot.
I'm going to post the Sassholes Instagram account to the show notes. So everybody go look at Dan's cats. They are fun to follow.
Yeah, it's my wife's account, yeah.
Anyway.
Full control. You go away.
Regardless of if you were guilty or not. Huh?
I said I'm going to have to exile this cat out of the room in a minute.
Outlawing!
Yeah.
So regardless of if you were guilty or not, a summons is a summons, and if the court wants you there, you need to be there. If you failed to show up, the writs of capias were issued by the courts directing the sheriff to arrest the individual. 3 successive in civil and minor criminal matters, 1 or 2 for treason, rebellion, or homicide. Now, if the sheriff still failed to find the defendant, the next step was to sue out a writ of exigent. Now, this said that the defendant could not be found, did not have any goods in that country, and thus could not be attached or distrained, goods seized to enforce his appearance. It directed the sheriff to make a proclamation at 5 successive county courts ordering the defendant's appearance upon pain of outlawry. If he still had failed to appear by the 5th proclamation, he was then declared an outlaw. That was not the only way someone could become an outlaw, but it was definitely one of them. Oh, looky there up on your chair. I just now know. I just looked up.
He's climbing all over me. He's very cuddly today for some reason. It's probably because he hears me talking, you see.
It's a possibility.
So he's hopefully going to stay there. But sorry, I was going to say there is like this is primarily what we're talking about here in the UK law, wasn't it?
Yeah,
so,
it's definitely,
So the reason I was going to say is because if you think about it, like I know it's something that we kind of briefly touched on before, but if you have to report to 5 courts in a single county, counties are fairly big areas in the UK. They were anyway. They're even bigger back then, than they are now. Because they've been subdivided since. So I can't imagine how you'd manage to.
Well, it's so harder to get to then than what it is now. And it
costs an awful lot of money if you had to imagine getting a taxi all the way around there, a horsey taxi and cart all the way around.
Well, I'd imagine the sheriff just takes whatever the fuck. I would imagine sharing a sheriff of Nottingham just takes whatever the fuck he wants and just goes about his merry way.
Yeah, true enough.
But how the fuck do you know? If somebody, so they send you a summons to court, but if you're just some fucking guy who shifts through shit in a fucking river all day, how the fuck are you gonna know that there's a summons out for you? And then how the fuck are you gonna know that this guy's going to 5 different courts? You could live your entire life and never know that you are wanted for murder. So they didn't have they didn't have the internet back then. I don't know if this was something where everybody was expected to go to the court once a month and look or something. I don't know. It didn't have anything.
Maybe they put a big piece of paper up on a wall or in a door. Is that the whole thing like town criers?
I suppose.
Possibly.
First billboards, just post them. Wanted, dead or alive. I mean, it wouldn't be wanted, dead or alive quite yet, but getting there. So I don't know how they expected people to know, unless it was just a comment. If you're supposed, if there's something going on, I guess it got around.
But that being said, if you commit murder, then you more likely want to be looking out to see is my name up on that wall.
Here's the thing: is that you didn't have to commit the murder for somebody to go say that you committed a murder. It didn't have to be like That's true. Bunch of it. He's like, oh, I saw this guy. He did it. How do you know? He seems like the type of person who would. Witches. He's a witch. And then, of course. Yeah, they go looking for you.
It was my evil twin.
Yeah. Now, a lot of outlaws back then had actually already been caught and released after being found guilty. Instead of locking you up, which costs money, or executing you, which also costs money, the court simply outlaws you. So you might be wondering, what the fuck does that mean? Well, Not that you live outside the rule of law, like your outlaws of the Westerns, but that you live outside the protection of the law. So that's where psychological torture kicks in, because in one fell swoop, you can now be robbed, raped, kidnapped, or murdered by anyone at any time, and there's nothing anyone could or would do to stop it. Those protections of the law no longer apply to you. Now, on the last episode, I like to give the hints about what the next episode's going to be, and I had a fucking horrible hint of, oh, the word means the opposite of what it means now, and then it's fucking horrible. When, right after we stopped recording, I looked down, yes, we are still recording, in case you wanted to know.
Yeah. I know I am.
At the end of the fucking recording, we get off as like, you know what would have been a better hint? John Wick. The end of the, again, spoiler if you haven't seen it, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, as I already said, I'm gone on record. It's been recorded twice now, as of now.
It's true.
Sort your goddamn life out.
It's true.
Sort your goddamn life out.
We will get the
damn movie.
We will get the Patreon going, and we will put Dan's half of the original episode out, and you will hear him tell you to get your fucking life sorted out if you haven't seen the John Wick movies. Anyway, the end of John Wick, he no longer has protection, and there's actually a bounty out for him, which happened quite a bit as well. They, anybody can kill you if they want. If you were somebody who they caught, found guilty, and sent out, they wouldn't put a bounty out on you because they already had you. But if you were somebody who hadn't been caught yet, that they were looking for, and they outlawed you without representation, more than likely they'd be like, wanted dead or alive, bring them in, we'll give you however much money. So it's a lot like, it's pretty much the end of John Wick. I imagine John Wick, when I do that 4 pictures that summarize our episode, it's just going to be a John Wick from each movie. a different John Wick, and they all look alike.
Yeah. And me with a sort of goddamn life out face.
That's right. So, yeah, you live in constant fear of being assaulted and killed by anyone. Now, if you killed an outlawed man, you needed to declare it immediately. Outlawed men weren't seen as men anymore. But if their family was able to prove their innocence or get the order reversed, and then they found out that you had killed them, you could technically be put on trial for murder. So don't wait. If you're out,
everybody
out there, if you hear somebody got outlawed and you go and you decide to kill them, let somebody know. Otherwise, you could be fucking yourself. KYA.
You know what you should do? Here's the thing for you. If you have already killed somebody, you might be curious if they are outlaws or not. The best thing to do is go down to your local police department, hand yourself in, tell them, hey, I killed this guy. Is he an outlaw? You find out pretty swiftly. So
go to your local constabulary and say, have you have you seen the writ of capias or writ of exigent? Has the sheriff gone to 5 counties in the court? Yeah. So, and what it is, if you kill the guy and then they go and reverse it or find that he's, innocent or whatever, and then they find out that you killed them, it's like, well, we don't know if you killed him before or after. So we're going to assume it was after. So
show them the mummified corpse.
Yes. It's like, well, he's obviously been dead for weeks. And they're like, that's what people look at. It's like, this is the 1200s. That's what people look like when they're sleeping, for fuck's sake. So again, if you're out there and you murder anybody, you go check. You never know what might happen.
Yeah.
So on top of all that, since the law no longer recognizes you, you lose all of your possessions, property, and titles, which extends to your family. If the court simply killed you, your family would still keep your wealth, land, position in society. But if you are outlawed, all that goes away. And if you're head of the household, it goes away for everyone. And where does all that land and wealth go? Well, to the state, of course, the king, meaning that for everyone they outlawed, the more money and land the state got. So it was really...
Can you imagine how many people they outlawed just for the sake of it? Like, I'd say that was definitely had to have been a thing. Like, to turn around and, so say if old Jim down the road wouldn't sell the parcel of land to the local government because they wanted to expand upon their local house of ill repute or something that they were controlling, then you'd imagine then that they'd simply outlaw the person, take all the land away.
We want to put it. We want to put.
Who's going to prove otherwise?
Going to put a highway through your house, so you can either sell it to us or run for your life. It's going to be one or the other. Yeah.
I would not be surprised.
Oh no, I would not be. The country we're in at the time we're in, it easily could have happened. Easily.
I'm sorry, it would happen. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened now.
True. There's a lot of.
If they did that same thing, then I would not be surprised if it happened now. Just loads. There's just the modern version of it, which is killing them.
Yeah.
or or paying them off or whatever. I mean, just a very, I don't know. It depends on what sort of movies you watch, what sort of imagination you have about that one.
Well, with some of the things that you and I were messaging to each other, we have the imagination for it, but I don't know if we want to get into that with people. Cereals.
Yeah.
So, to understand exactly why they would do that, how they would do this, how many people this happened to, you can look at the judicial records for the county of Gloucestershire in England in 1221. There were 330 cases of murder tried. That's a lot for one county for 1 year. Only 14 of those were found guilty and hanged. 100 were declared outlaw and set loose. The other 216 were either found innocent or given some other form of punishment, breaking rocks in a yard or something. But 100 of those were like, okay, you murdered somebody, so we're just going to take all your shit and good luck to you. And then they send them out in the world. And I imagine somebody just standing out, just outlawed here. Anybody in the mood? Outlawed.
Yeah, it'd probably be like the good old scene of Game of Thrones, and which is Starks is it the boy when the Battle of the Bastards.
Uh-huh.
Just imagine it kind of like that. That's like he's an outlaw, run, kind of thing. Everybody's just sitting there waiting. Going,
Well, yeah. And this, I believe this last one was where you said, man, it would have sucked to have a twin or be a twin. It actually would have been really great to have a twin and been horrible to be a twin.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when they start putting
up. They both go out and murder two different people. They both have to go on their own, blaming the other person. It's like some really crappy, what's your man's name again? I think it's like Jeremy Corbyn or whatever. I can't remember the guy's name. It's some author. Anyway, it's like a book that guy would write. But yeah, Jeremy Corbyn. No, that's a British politician. I'm thinking of a different guy. Oops. I don't know who I'm thinking of. Anyway, just
good enough. But what if you're twins and you find two outlawed men, you both kill one, but one of them is before they're proven guilty, or one of them is while they're still outlawed, and the other one's after they've been outlawed. They're like, no, I killed him. No, I killed him. You're just the Spider-Man picture, just pointing at one another.
Yeah. And just go on the record, it's Harlan Coben.
Oh,
so I was thinking of.
That was nowhere near what you.
No, Jeremy Corbyn. It's close enough.
Yeah,
Corbyn.
So
that's what made me think of it.
In 1255, King Henry III, bringing him back, outlawed over 70 murderers, and took their wealth and land for himself. The next year, another 70 were outlawed. 1279, the Northumbrian courts outlawed another 64. Now, this all sounds horrible, but it did give the accused and convicted a strange opportunity that most didn't receive. Because unlike hanging or beheading or any other type of physical or mental torture that can never truly be reversed, outlaws, if they were indeed innocent of charges, actually had a chance to get their ruling overturned. If they were able to find evidence or witnesses that could prove they weren't guilty, the court would put them back under the protection of the law. or they could file for pardon, which didn't say that they were innocent, but that they had served enough time under the punishment. Again, just like it is now, you have to prove you're innocent. Not,
Yeah.
you don't have to prove you might not be guilty. You have to prove that you definitely are not. This didn't happen a ton, but it did happen. The thing is, you would technically be a new person and wouldn't always have your prior possessions or titles returned to you. It really depended on the circumstance, how far the case went, be it the county court, king's court, parliament. You wouldn't have to live in constant fear of being robbed or murdered anymore, any more than normal in the 1200s anyway. I guess that all kind of depends on who you are and who you know and who you're friends with. If you're in good with the king or in good with somebody in parliament or that county court, it's a good chance you get all your shit back, your title, all that. If you rub people the wrong way, I can't imagine that you're getting any of your stuff back.
I can probably only imagine that's based
Yeah.
partially as well on what the wealth of that is. I mean, I'd say if you're some little stupid sheep farmer from up the way that only has about 2 sheep to his name and stuff like that, then they really couldn't care. Whereas you never know. Well, I don't know.
Sheep are probably dead by now.
Yeah, well, there's probably a chance that they're going to take somebody who's a bit more, let's say, publicly known in a position like, let's say, like the local town baker who happens to be Dimple Dick, and he make an example of him.
Dimple Dick Crunch fucking killed.
Yeah.
If you're like some highfalutin baron or something and you have thousands of acres of land and you have wife and daughters and sons and cattle and all this, if you're good with the king, you might get all that shit back.
Yeah.
Can't promise you're getting your wife or your kids back because, you know, what happens to them is what happens to them. It is medieval England. But you might get your land and your title back. If you were an asshole to the king or the king just didn't like the way you walked, it's a good chance. Nobody's going to kill you now. At least nobody's going to go out and try to kill you now. But you're just going to be poor and you're going to have to figure out shit on your own. So,
as I said before, it's a cheap divorce.
Yes.
That's all it is. A very cheap divorce.
Get
yourself outlawed.
So if you want out of your family, just go out and kill somebody and then run, and don't let them catch you.
Pretend to kill somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Even if it's like petty stuff, you could be outlawed for petty shit too, civil and minor crimes. It just takes longer. So just never show up to court. No matter what you do, never show up to court. Eventually they'll outlaw you. You'll lose all your shit, and finally your wife will come find you, and you'll be like, "Whoa, ho, ho. Not your husband, babe."
I'm a different man now. My name's Jim.
I know we used to have a thing, but we went our separate ways. You gotta let me go. Oh, fuck. So the practice did finally fade away, mostly because of the greater population density of the country, which made it harder for wanted fugitives to evade capture, and the adoption of international extradition pacts. By the time, a couple centuries later and the population has exploded, there's going to be wanted posters, I'm sure, up for you everywhere. I don't know if they posted like an outlawry poster up. This was a little bit before the printing press, so there's no newspaper. But if your picture is posted all over the place and there are, 100% more people than what there were before, it's a good chance you're not going to make it very far without getting captured and taken back to prison.
Yeah.
If they're still looking for you, if you get outlawed and sent out, then
how good were those police sketch artists back then, though? That's what I'd like to know.
Quill and pen.
Yeah, like as well as that, though, I'd say there was an awful lot of marrying your cousin and stuff like that. Like, so there could have been an awful lot of people looking very similar, is my guess.
Yeah.
But I Well, actually, that's a bit of a stupid statement. Yeah.
No.
The populations weren't that big and blah, blah, blah. That was actually a normal thing.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Really. But, yeah, unless you're from Kentucky, it's all kinds of messed up now.
Alabama, Mississippi.
Yeah.
Name.
No offense to
name a few more
people from there, but
unless you do that type of thing, then I mean, come on.
Hey, look, if you want it, go ahead. I don't care as long as it's not with me.
Yeah.
Don't give a shit.
Yeah.
My mother's my sister. Anyway,
and a lot of these people, you'll see when they get outlawed, they'd like flee to France. France wouldn't send people back to England because France and England fucking hated each other. But if you'd flee to like if you'd flee somewhere that is more friendly with the English, there's a good chance that if they caught you, they would send you back, and then you're fucked. So by the time it finally was abolished, it was pretty much obsolete. Granted, it didn't get abolished until 1938.
Yeah,
but
that's kind of messed up, though.
Yeah. But they're still doing Ling Chi in the 1900s, so I mean, we can't really say a whole lot about it.
That's true. And actually, yeah, I've something to talk about from the 1900s, which is all messed up.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a few minutes.
Yes, we will. But honestly, it really hadn't been in practice a few decades before that, so probably mid 1800s, actively happening in the UK. After that, it just didn't really happen.
No.
Now, the concept of outlawry was reintroduced to British law, but by the Australians and their colonial governments in the late 19th century to deal with the menace of bushranging. Now, that's where escaped convicts in the early years of the British settlements of Australia would use the bush as a refuge to hide from the authorities. The Felons Apprehension Act in New South Wales of 1865 provided that a judge could, upon proof of sufficiently notorious conduct, issue a special bench warrant requiring a person to submit themselves to police custody before a given date, or be declared an outlaw. Now, an outlawed person could be apprehended, quote, alive or dead, by any of the Queen's subjects, quote, whether a constable or not, and without, quote, being accountable for using of any deadly weapon in aid of such apprehension. So pretty much, kill him with whatever the fuck you got. We don't care.
Yeah, so it's light them on fire.
Yeah.
Petrol,
Sure.
chainsaws, being
Have
ready
fun
to
with
exist
it.
back then. Yeah.
Let your imagination run wild. Bring
Put them in the
D&D
head crusher.
Bring D&D to life.
Yeah.
Acid splash?
Just
Go
about-
right ahead. Magic missile, if you
Stand
can
there.
pull it off.
Imagine somebody standing over him with a hammer. Natural 20, bitch. Bam.
He just standing above him with a fucking sledgehammer. He takes out a dice and rolls it. Oh, the last thing you see is him smiling. Crit! Brings it down on your face. Oh, fuck. We always bring it back to D&D somehow. Anyway, This was just like Edward Ned Kelly, a lifelong criminal, started in his young teens, learned very early about how to be a bushranger from other older lifelong criminals. Now, as he got older and more experienced and bold, he put together the infamous Kelly Gang and terrorized the rim of civilized society near the outback. That is, until he and his gang got in a shootout with the police where they killed a few policemen. News of the police murders led to widespread fear of the bushrangers. On the 28th of October, 1878, the government of Victoria announced a reward of £200 per head for their arrest, and this was soon increased to £500. I believe we had brought it up earlier. I was like, at the end of it, with £500 per head for what was 8 of them, ended up being like $68,000 or some shit like that, or 68,000 pounds. It's a lot of fucking money. on
awful lot of money back then. For somebody who is allegedly an innocent man who became one of the most wanted criminals the world has ever known.
Yeah.
And I said that so fucking quietly, actually, because an innocent man who became one of the most wanted criminals the world has ever known, because I was too far away from my microphone. And all you're going to hear is...
So on October 31st, 1878, the Victorian Parliament passed the Felon Apprehensions Act, which came into effect the next day. 3 days later, notices were published throughout the colony, giving the bushrangers until the 12th of November to surrender themselves. The 15th, 4 members of the Kelly gang that had not surrendered themselves were declared outlaws. As a result, members of the gang could be killed without challenge by anyone finding them armed or who had a reasonable suspicion that they were armed. So I guess that is kind of the difference between the original outlawry and this one, is that you had to show that they were, armed and dangerous. Maybe your life was in peril and you could, kill stand your ground law or whatever the fuck you want to call it. You could just kill them and give them a gun and say, he was going to use that on me. I don't think they're going to do a lot of fingerprint analysis.
Fingerprinting, yeah. Well, let me go check the old CCTV that we have sitting here in the middle of the outback. Yeah.
Well, look, he's holding the gun. Fingerprints all over it. They're like, oh, wipe those down. That's disgusting. Was it that John Mulaney bit where it's like back when Jack the Ripper was around, like, sir, there's blood everywhere. Gross. Clean that up.
Yeah. Seems to be just real distinctive marking in the shape of what looks like somebody's fingertip. Shall we analyze this? No.
I think that's so-and-so's sister. We'll never know. Okay. Yeah. So the act would also penalize anyone who gave, quote, any aid, shelter, or sustenance to the outlaws, or withheld information, or gave false information to the authorities. So if you helped them out in any way, again, no food or water, no water or fire. But if you gave them shelter, if you gave them food, if you gave them money, if you knew where they were and you didn't actively go to the police and tell them, was just like lying to them. It was just like helping them. So you could be held in contempt just for doing that.
That's a bit much.
Yeah. You just think, you're talking to the police and you're like, oh yeah, about a week ago, I thought I saw one of them walking down the street. There's a good chance you could be thrown in prison for that shit.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty damn sure I just saw the impoverished son of an Irish immigrant who was pushed wrongfully by police persecution into becoming one of our most notorious bushrangers.
Are you reading an IMDb page?
Again, yes, I am.
Is Mick Jagger on the cover of that one?
Yes, he is.
Well, people are like, what the fuck are they giving? We'll get to it in a few minutes, I promise.
I think it's funny. I have to say, I think it's funny though, hearing like the Kelly gang thing. I was just thinking it's so original. Like, have you ever seen Flight of Conchords?
Yes.
Yeah, the Brett starts the gang, the tough Bretts.
Uh-huh.
That's just that just made me think of it straight away. It's like, yeah, we're the tough Kellys. The tough Kellys.
I'm pretty sure the tough Kellys would actually fucking kill you.
Yeah.
So, punishment for any of this was, quote, imprisonment with or without hard labor for such period not exceeding 15 years. So the maximum sentence was hard labor for 15 years just for helping or not telling the police about seeing the Kelly gang or lying to them, obviously. Now, the Kelly gang would make themselves full suits of armor in case they were in any more shootouts and continued their crimes, which will lead to the first generation Iron Man suit that Mick Jagger wears.
Oh yeah. Just put a bit of context, yeah. So I'm always looking at the stupid little bits of media things, whatever. And when you mentioned Ned Kelly before, went in, had a look on IMDb, see were there any Ned Kelly films, which it turns out there are quite a few. One of them starring none other than Mick Jagger,
who looks nothing like the pictures of Ned Kelly, by the way. Nothing.
No, and and like the poster is half of it is he's wearing the metal suit, and I just think it's very funny the way, as I said before, Ned Kelly's supposed to be the son of an Irish man living in Australia, and they get Mick Jagger, of all people, to play him. They kept bringing it back to the whole thing of Highlander, and the Scottish man to play the Spanish prince, and the Swede to play the Scottish guy.
Yeah, Matt.
Montoya, son of a Spanish prince.
Matt Damon playing a Chinaman.
Oh, that in itself. I was looking at things for that, and if you look at it, is it just me? If you're to Google it there now, I don't know if you can, but is it just me, or did they have his face digitally altered to try and make it look like his eyes are
probably
a little bit more
probably?
And it's like he's meant to be like almost dubbed. When you look at it, it's like it's meant to be, as if you speak in English, but dubbed or something. It's like they intentionally put the audio off, or else it was just a terrible copy that I saw. But it looks like it's trying to.
How do we make Matt Damon look a little more Asian? Let's fuck with the sound a little bit to make it more Godzilla-y.
Yeah.
Be like, well, that's a different. That's Japanese and this is Chinese.
Yeah.
All Americans don't care. It's all the same. Which is true. Most of us don't know the difference.
That's it. Yeah. For all you know, he is Chinese.
That's a possibility. He could have some Asian ancestry. We don't know. Now,
yeah, I don't. It's ridiculous.
So Kelly and his gang stayed outlawed for a couple more years as they continued their crimes. And in 1880, almost exactly 2 years later, they got in yet another shootout with the police, Ned Kelly being the only of the gang to survive. He was put on trial, found guilty, and November 11th, he was hanged. So, spoiler, if you ever want to see any of the Ned Kelly gang movies, he dies at the end, I imagine. Unless it's like Titanic and he dies in the middle and then some old lady throws a stone into the ocean. I don't fucking know.
Ned Kelly-ish.
Ned Kelly.
Kinda.
So
there's one with Heath Ledger as well.
Yeah.
That looks more like it's going to be like, I don't want to say like Brokeback Mountain, just looking at the pictures of it.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as there's a metal suit of armor.
I don't think there is. I don't know. I suppose I should probably watch it at some stage, but I don't think that's the. I don't know if they're going for a different vibe compared to the other one.
Let's see, when we talked about this last time, and you pulled that up and you were looking, like, oh, Mick Jagger was in a movie about him. I was like, oh, okay. And then I got to the part about where he had a giant an armor suit. Dan's eyes got real big, and he's like, "Oh, it makes so much sense now." Because if you look at the
poster, makes no sense.
If you look at the poster, it's half Mick Jagger, half old Iron Man.
Yeah, it's half Mick Jagger, half the Black Knight from Holy Grail. That's what it is. And it makes zero sense when you don't know. Like, I was sitting there and I was thinking about it, but I didn't want to say anything in case it came across an idiot or something. But I was just like, why in God's name does he have half a helmet on?
Tis but a flesh.
Absolutely ridiculous. We call this a draw.
Ugh. Now, although the provisions of the similar provisions were passed, Victoria and Queensland, this was the one in Victoria was passed that helped them catch the Kelly gang. And although the provisions of New South Wales Felon Apprehension Act were not exercised after the end of the bushranging era, they still remained on the books as law until 1976. So, the movie about Ned Kelly had came out before they took this law out of the books in Australia.
That's ridiculous.
You can get those books that tell you weird laws that are still in effect for a lot of different places. And there's law, I don't remember what state it is. There's a law where you're not allowed to spit on the sidewalk on Sundays. That's still on the books. You can be arrested.
Really?
Yes, you could be arrested for. And yet you could still marry your 13-year-old cousin in some of those states. So.
Oh, that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Ugh.
Yeah, apparently there was some law here. I don't know how true it is, but again, you know what I'm like for my facts. They're very few and far between. But yeah, apparently there was some law to do with like taxi slash cab drivers having to have a bale of hay or something from back in the day when it was horse-drawn carriages, and they never wrote it out of the thing to do
Something
with
for
the
them to
law
sit
or
on?
licensing to do with it. No, it was for the horse, to feed the horse.
Oh.
The route, so they had to have a bale of hay in the back of it, apparently, and apparently it was still in law for so long that technically somebody driving a car would have to have.
So what if
a bale
you
of hay in the
what
boot.
if you go to get in a taxi and you're like, I got some luggage I need to throw. You know, the boot for you or the trunk for us. I got some luggage I need to throw back there, and they open it up. It was just a bale of hay.
Sorry, you can't take your bags. It's too much.
I
hay.
gotta feed the horse. What horse? You know, the horse. He just kind of looks.
So many horses.
He just looks at you and wink. You know, the horse. And you have no idea what the fuck he's talking about, but you just got to go along with it.
Then you open the hood, as you'd call it, and you see a little tiny horse sitting inside.
Yeah, there's no engine. There's no engine.
In a wheel.
It's just a little horse. Yeah. There's a dozen little horses
running in a wheel, running a little hamster wheel that then turns the wheels. That's how engines work.
Did you guys have Codename Kids Next Door over there? The cartoon?
Don't know.
There's a cartoon.
Maybe.
Got me thinking. There's a cartoon called Codename Kids Next Door. And
Googling it.
They had this massive tree house.
Yes, we did have that.
The whole thing that powers the tree house is hamsters on wheels. So that made me think of that.
I don't remember that now myself, but
that made me think.
I recognize.
Yeah, they pull back one of the walls, and it's nothing but hamsters on wheels powering the entire place. Hundreds of them.
That's basically how this entire country runs.
Hey,
so, the lights are on here because
listen,
of that.
You don't have to tell me about hamsters and gerbils running the fucking country. Anyway, so you might be thinking, when did the term outlaw really start to change from living without protection to living outside of the law? Well, possibly in Germany and Slavic countries, mid-15th to 19th century. Groups of outlaws composed of former prisoners, soldiers, became important social phenomena. Now, they lived off robbery, and their activity was often supported by the local inhabitants from the lower classes. Best known are Juraj Janosik in Slovakia, Oleksa Dobush in Ukraine, and Rosa Sandor in Hungary. And I'm sure I fucked all those names up. It's fine. These men and those that work with them were known as highwaymen, and all became major folklore heroes of their respected times and countries, mostly because of stories of them stealing from the rich and giving to the poor.
Who's that, I wonder?
Is it Robin Hood? Yes, the inspirations for Robin Hood. Now, I hear a sasshole.
Sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize. We love the kid. I'm just glad my dog's not out here because he'd be loud as fuck. So that brings us to the discussion of how would that be today? If outlawry was still a thing, still used regularly today, it would be the fucking worse. It would be the fucking purge.
Yeah.
So here you'd probably just have a bunch of rednecks who all they want to do is kill things, and this would give them a reason. They're just going to stand outside the courthouse with their shotgun and wait for somebody to come out and hope that they're outlawed so they can fucking shoot them in the head and watch the blood splatter. I don't know about Ireland, but that would definitely happen in a large portion of this country.
That would happen here, yeah. There's
so?
Enough scumbags and general idiots here that would do such a thing, yeah.
Conservative farmers who just want to get people off their fucking land.
They'd be the least ones I'd worry about the least.
Oh, yeah?
I'll send you a video later of the sort of people that you'd have around here that I know would welcome the purge. There's those that would welcome the purge to take care of those said people.
Man, there's a lot of people here that would welcome the purge. Sometimes I'm one of them, but that quickly goes away when I realize that I don't own a gun and I would probably die. One of the rare Americans.
Same here.
Anyway, pop culture wise, Dan, I know we talked about the couple movies. What else do you have? I know. There's one.
My
There's one certain songstress that we referenced several times.
Look, if I get rid of this cat from sitting up on top of my head, get down, Sooty. Get down.
It's a cutie. Okay. Oh,
he might stay there now. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So we're 2 for 2 here now with Taylor Swift and her song "Exile" featuring Bon Iver. So that's another Taylor Swift song now to go into the books.
Yeah.
And
the band
got up the lyrics here, but I'm trying to the only Exile things I can find is her saying, hold on, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, because he's just going over the damn microphone. Yeah, so lyric wise it's just now I'm in exile, seeing you out. I think I've seen this film before. So I'm leaving outside the door. Out the side door. That's poetic.
She's going to leave out the side door and then run for her life because she's been outlawed and everybody's going to come try and kill her.
Yep. Yeah. Basically. But yeah. So that's I haven't listened to the song and I won't be listening to the song either. So outside of that then, it was just the movies.
Yeah.
Which of the likes of Ned Kelly and stuff like that, but then you look at any Western to do with the more well-known version of Outlawing.
Yeah.
Things to do with Exile, I'm pretty sure that's you can find in an awful lot of movies.
Yeah.
And things to do with Exile in general. Like I know, was it one of the things in pop culture, the Predators, was that they're supposed to be exiled in order to complete their hunts and things like that?
Yes.
So that's one thing
I didn't
for
think
me.
about that. Have you seen the new Predator?
I have.
Have you? July, I liked it.
Yeah. I wasn't as groundbreaking as everybody keeps making it out to be. I kept hearing, it's like the greatest thing ever made. It's like, it's good.
Well, yeah. No, I wasn't. Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. I could see them doing that. Like, they can go throughout the eons of human history and put a Predator in each one of those and see how it is. And I think it would be entertaining. I liked it. I enjoyed it. Groundbreaking. I don't know if I'd say it was groundbreaking. It was definitely different than what they normally do, but not groundbreaking. But I enjoyed it. Good.
I thought it was very good. Apparently, there's a version you can watch where they speak in. I don't want to say that. I know it's like Native American.
Whatever Native American.
I don't know. Yeah,
I'm not really sure which tribe it is.
You can watch it. Yeah. Because I was giving out that they jump back and forth, but then somebody said to me, "Oh, you can actually watch it in their native language." Like, apparently they've recorded the whole thing audio-wise in whatever version. I can't remember because again it says what it is in it, but I can't remember what it is.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty cool because I can only assume that just the parts in it where the guy was started like French or whatever starts speaking in English.
Yeah.
And like, oh, you can speak English. Like, obviously, then they be speaking their native language there instead.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they should have just gone all apocalypto on it and just released it.
Yeah.
Just native language.
Just have. I mean, I don't know. It that's not really that big of a deal to me if they're speaking English or if they're speaking. You want to speak in their native language? Fine, put them native language. I'll put on the captions. I don't give a shit. You want to have them speak in English the whole time? Fine, I don't give a shit. I can use. It's you got to use your imagination sometimes when you go into shit like that. Like, oh, they're making it so I have one of those earworms from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where a babble fish, where I can understand everything, every culture. So that's fine. Which I'm hoping someday that becomes a thing. It'll prove the non-existence of God.
It will be the again back to D&D, but the ultimate thing to have in D&D, surely.
Oh God, yeah.
Imagine that. Pretty cool. But other than that, the only other thing I can think of is said before, the heavy-hitting item of Irish history to do with what is technically a form of exile, which is the Magdalene Laundries, which we can, probably cover to some extent in more detail at some stage, but
oh no, definitely, it's on the list. But go ahead and tell the people that don't know, because I had never heard of this before when you told me, and it's distressing and interesting all at the same time.
Yeah, well, again, the I need to look up the exact facts of things, but it was industrial laundries that were run by different sectors of the Catholic Church and in Ireland, and was run from the 18th century up until the late 20th century. So it closed down, I think it was 1993 was when the last one closed down. And the whole point of them really, well, originally they were supposed to be like these institutions for like women in general or whatever, but then they quickly became these things where they were known as Magdalene asylums, which were basically houses for what they referred to as fallen women, who were another word for prostitutes, as they deemed them to be prostitutes because it was women who got pregnant outside of wedlock.
Oh, yeah.
So
dirty whores getting pregnant outside of wedlock.
Yeah,
how dare you possibly be raped and then try to have a child out of wedlock?
Yeah, well, even the ones who chose to just like, I mean, like, so like, remember, like we were talking before about which you remember, like a man would get a woman pregnant and then he'd basically say, oh no, I didn't do that, and then she began getting a breast ripper and stuff like that. Like, you know, there's incidents like that, like, where a married man could end up getting a woman pregnant, and then she's the one that ends up in the laundry. So the whole thing was, I would say, like industrial laundries, and women would be in there and they'd be pregnant. An awful lot of cases in there, they'd have the babies there, and an awful lot of cases the babies never made it out of there. There are things nowadays of people who were babies that came from there trying to find their parents, trying to find their mothers. And there were let me see, here's the joke here. I just wanted to make sure I got the number right. So there was unmarked graves of 155 women were uncovered in a particular convent grounds in one of the laundries. And if memory serves correctly, there was a septic tank found full of babies.
Yeah.
Among them. Yeah. And
how many of these laundries were there?
I think it was 8 or something like that in total. That by the end, like there was, I think, might have been more, but it's how many were, because I had the numbers written down. So it says here in Wikipedia it's estimated that 30,000 women were put into these, but apparently that record is skewed because of the fact that not every one of them would have documented.
Oh no!
That way, you know. So the chances
not every one of them would have gotten a Christian burial either, depending on the woman and what she had done. Some of them would have just been tossed. So the ones that they found definitely aren't the only ones that there were.
Yeah. I know the women didn't necessarily die in here themselves either. You know, like it was like some of those would have all right, yeah, and some of them would have been babies' deaths, but like women did get through them, and then as they came to adulthood, were sent out with them because of the fact that they were adults then at that stage, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
I think it was people of a particular age, but again, it's one of those things that I have to double check to make sure. But so it was running all the way up into the 90s, and it was one of those things where allegedly the government didn't know anything about exactly what was happening, which is completely and to put everybody's mind at rest now, just because of all the atrocities now, there was a formal state apology issued in 2013, which you know, obviously helps out an awful lot.
Everything's fine now.
Yeah, and there was a £50 million, even though we deal in euro, I don't know why it's pound, compensation scheme set up for the survivors. But that's the Catholic Church for you. That's when you happen to mix church and state.
Yep.
And if you decided to have sexual intercourse as a woman in Ireland anytime up to 1993 and not be married, and we're under a strict religious family, that sort of stuff could happen to you. Like, there's been TV series, been movies about it. There's one called the Magdalene Sisters, a very famous film about it. Well worth the watch. It's not as heavy hitting as they could go with them, even though it's still very heavy.
What if they did like the Brooklyn Nine-Nine aspect with it and turned it into a comedy?
Oh, that will not go down well.
Somebody would try.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But I can only imagine the uproar that would happen from that, because of the
lost another baby. Wah, wah.
Yeah. But it's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, that's some heavy fucking shit. That's actually one of the things, one of the very few things that Charles Dickens did. Didn't show that he was complete fucking asshole. Was he actually ran a boarding house for prostitutes and women who have had babies outside of marriage and all that shit, and actually helped rehab them and put them back out into society as quote unquote better women. A lot of them got married off, and he shipped them to Australia or to America to get them out of England because of how horrible it was. One of the very few times you'll ever hear me compliment Charles Dickens, because I know a lot about the man, and he was a fucking asshole. Anyway, moving along. He was a dick, especially to his wives. He was a fucking ass, and his kids. He was a fucking douche.
That's pretty men of that time. They all seem to be a bit,
Yeah.
Apparently, flirtatious women were also chucked into the.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't show interest in anybody or anything, or you can't do something that would make a man think you were showing interest when you really weren't.
Of course,
that's completely your fault. You looked at a guy and now he thinks, oh, she must want me. Now, for all those guys who go to the Hooters bars and the woman's nice to you for the tip, and then you automatically think that she wants to go home with you. She doesn't. Just so you know. Do they have Hooters over in Ireland?
No, we don't have Hooters here. No. Nothing even close to it as far as more. Yeah, I just to correct a bit of a thing here because I double checked it just to make sure. So so you can edit this thinking section out. The babies in septic tanks, it doesn't look like it was part of that. It was, where's this going? It's the Bonsecours mother and baby home. Now, whether or not that is in any way linked to it, I don't know, but apparently there was a mass grave containing 800 babies in a septic tank.
Holy fucking hell.
Yep.
Where the fuck did the shit go if you got 800 babies in your goddamn septic tank?
Well, it was a mother and baby home. The Order of the Bonsecours Sisters, led by Mother Hortense McNamara in a tomb, which is in the county of Meath here, workhouse in 1925. And basically, it was the same kind of idea. It was a workhouse, so same thing, and led by the Roman Catholic Church, just not
of course
a laundry. It was a different thing, basically. By
but I bet if you looked at some of those laundries, you'd probably find shit like that, though.
Oh, 100% you would. Like,
but that's
150 odd unmarked graves just in one.
I think that's the big question. I can't run grease down my kitchen sink without my fucking basement flooding with water. How the fuck do they get 800 newborns in a septic tank without shit being everywhere?
I don't know. And I think it's very ironic, though, of this country to basically, there's the usual, very stereotypical thing here of people who really don't have any actual clue about anything that happened. Let's say giving out about English and English rule and everything like that without actually knowing a single ounce of Irish history or anything to do with it. They just assume, oh, I'm going to have to hate English because they're English and I'm Irish. And yet they are devout Catholics. And that's the sort of stuff like that.
Yeah. Happens. Oh, but that's pretty prevalent everywhere. It's the same thing over here. I'm still learning things about American history, and our history isn't near as old as your history. And I'm still learning things about our history that happened just a few decades ago that we don't know about because they refuse to teach it, because if you teach that, then
it looks bad.
It looks bad. They're trying to get rid of all that shit now out of classrooms. Well, we don't want people to learn about, when we had slaves. We don't want people to learn about racism. They're trying to take the Holocaust out and all that shit because they don't
white man bad. Yeah. Make you feel really sad about it. Can't be doing that.
What's up?
I'm gonna go run some errands, cash that check, and get some stuff.
Okay.
Love you.
Love you too.
Don't forget to hit record.
Yes.
Bye
Stephanie,
bye.
I've hit record a few times. she don't forget to hit record. So if I hadn't hit record. Dan says bye. If I haven't hit record by now, we're completely fucked.
Just for everybody else's sake, I've been recording secret messages while I've been swapping over into Zoom calls.
I love you too. Yeah.
You said that to me, Kevin.
Yeah. If you're going to start a podcast, get a private area where you cannot be disturbed.
Yeah, by cats or wives.
She's still standing there. Did you hear her scream, fuck you? Anyway, all right. So for the hint for the next episode, which will actually be probably a series, I'm guessing 2 episodes. I don't know yet because I'm still writing it. But if I had to guess, probably 2 episodes. It's today is the first day of the rest of your life. For those of you who know about cults and shit, you'll already know who I'm talking about. For those of you who don't,
Part of this.
yes. For those of you who don't, you'll be surprised. I'm not going to say pleasantly surprised because it's kind of fucked up, but it wouldn't be on this show if it wasn't.
That's like everything we talk about. One last thing as well, and before we go, is there was the lady who gave us their one and only review at the time.
Yes.
Big.
Oh, we were supposed to put that at the beginning of the episode. I remember.
Bettina.
I think it's Bethina.
Bethina.
Yeah,
sorry for look. It's not even a Slovak name, and we're still butchering it. Yeah. But
we said it right at least one of those times.
Yeah, and my exact statement was, "Oh, Bethina, she's obviously fucked up in the head." Listen, I looked back and checked the message. Thanks very much for that. And
yes, 5-star review on Apple.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Hey guys, I'm just gonna jump in here just real quick. I wish we would have known this when we recorded this episode. We did not. But the Beth that left us the glowing review on Apple Podcasts is actually the same Beth that hosts the True Crime BnB podcast that started off this episode. They do amazing work over there. The show's great. Do yourselves a favor, do us a favor when this episode is over in just a few minutes. Go to our show notes, click on their link, go check out their show. You will not be disappointed, I promise. All right? Okay, back to the show.
And a big thanks and shout out then to Andre and Sarah as well. It seems we popped Andre's podcast cherry. He started listening. It's like got him into the podcasts, and yeah, I warned him about Serial too. So
yes, and then I said, well, I hope you didn't give him any better podcasts to listen to. And you're like, oh, I told him to go listen to Serial. I was like, fuck, you picked one of the best ones.
Serial and Shittown were the two I told him to listen to.
Goddamn, even a better one.
Yeah.
Shittown is amazing. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely love that. But yeah, he's going through ours first, and like Sarah then is his partner who sent me that message that I sent on to you, saying you should get onto the airplane, download the episode. So so
Andre and Sarah, thank you so much for listening. It really means a lot to us. If you want to subscribe, follow, leave a little rate and review, we really appreciate it. It means a lot to us. You can get a hold of us on Twitter and Instagram at TorturePod. Email us, please. Fucking email us. We would love to hear from you guys. I'll read them on the air. I don't give a shit. Fucking email us. Let us know what you think.
Good, bad, or indifferent.
Yes, torturepod@gmail.com. If you fucking hate the show, email us and tell us, and we will let everybody know you hate the show and why you hate the show, and we probably won't do anything to fix it, but goddamn it, it's nice to know. Or if you just want to say, hey, I listened to the episode, it was a show, thanks. That's fine.
It'd be like, we want less torture, more D&D, more food, more cats. that's going to be more Kevin's wife shouting in the background.
Or your wife shouting. Luckily, we were recording at the time about your son in the bathroom.
Nope.
All right, fuck. Well, I think that's enough for today. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, we're gonna have to try and find some alcoholic beverages, I think, to start pairing with.
I would imagine they have some type of outlaw beer somewhere. I imagine.
Oh no, 100% they do.
Oh, outlaw whiskey, outlaw bourbon.
Yeah, sure.
All that shit.
What you call it is like the frontier style whiskey stuff. Brewed in bathtubs kind of job is. What's the name of it again? I'll have to look it up. A friend of mine who sadly passed away earlier on this year introduced me to it. I can't remember the name, but now I'll have to look it up. But
some of these are going to be
good. I have a bottle downstairs, I think, so I'll have to go.
Oh, okay. Some of these are going to be pretty easy for you to pair up with. I don't know, like even with like Robert Hansen, you get the cake batter vodka or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to be able to find like a Bassination tequila anywhere.
I'm sorry. Have you ever had Irish poaching? That'll tear your eyes right out. So that's to do the job. You know, that's called Bullet Bourbon. That's the name of it. That's called Bullet.
Bullet?
Bullet. Yeah, it's really good. You should just look it up. Like the bottles look like really old school, like Wild West bottles. Like that somebody also made in their bathtub.
Just the one little ring that you got to put the finger through and like hold it like that and take a drink.
Oh, no, not to that extent. No, it's
okay.
It's not the drugs. No.
After you drink them, you blow into them for music.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I think we'll leave you all to be. All right. We'll talk to you next time, guys. See ya.
Sorry about that. Bye.